Hi everyone, Skip the Knee Track Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Bright Eyes album, Down in the Weeds Where the World Once Was. Yes, this is the latest LP from Omaha band Bright Eyes, masterminded by singer-songwriter Conor Oberst. This band was the musical bible of many a tortured, introspective teenager throughout the 2000s. Fevers and Mirrors, Lifted, I'm Wide Awake It's Morning, not just emotional powerhouses of anguished lyricism, but also some of the best indie folk you'll hear from this decade too. But after a short but respectable run of Bright Eyes classics, Conor Oberst began to get a bit of mainstream attention and used it as an opportunity to branch out into other projects. His solo LP in 2008, the Mystic Valley Band record, as well as the Monsters of Folk collab record with M. Ward, Jim James, Mike Mogus. Even Bright Eyes sound was evolving around this period with the release of Casadega in 2007, an album that at the time I didn't really care for, but in college I didn't really have the musical vocabulary to understand why. Oberst and company on this LP shot for a sound that was a lot more measured in tone, not quite so emotionally inconsolable, while opting for an instrumental backdrop that was a bit more safely arranged and a bit more alt-country. It was like the closest Bright Eyes music would ever come to sounding appropriate to play in a Midwestern dive bar or even a movie soundtrack. While I'm still not crazy about the record to this day, I do appreciate Oberst's songwriting a little bit more than I did in retrospect. Now I see it maybe as Conor's attempt at artistically maturing at the time, which I get in a sense. Your career can't exist in this perpetual emotional breakdown state forever. Plus, it's only for so long that you can play the tragically troubled youth card. Even Elliott Smith began embracing easier blends of country and indie rock on From a Basement on a Hill. Now, several years later, Bright Eyes dropped the similarly tame but even more unpalatable The People's Key. On one single album, you have the soaring hard rock riffs and synth leads of Shell Games juxtaposed against the wandering, dreamy, psychedelic landscapes of A Machine Spiritual or Approximate Sunlight. The track list is constantly veering back and forth between cheap attempts at rocking out and being so indulgent it's hard to engage. While to this day Oberst is a respectable songwriter, he certainly proved as much on his stripped-back acoustic 2016 Ruminations record, I still think for years now his music has been aesthetically out to lunch. I went into Down in the Weeds hoping for a different story this time around, but my hopes weren't high, and for the most part I think this record is maybe close, but no cigar, which is actually a little more than I expected. To start things off, while it's not unusual for a Bright Eyes record to kick off with an opener that is a little theatrical, Page Turner's Rag, despite its endearing horn and piano passages, mostly sounds like a foggy fever dream in a bar during the turn of the century, and I just want to leave. Thankfully, past this point, Conor begins hitting listeners with some of Bright Eyes' best stuff in ages. Dance and Sing is a somber and powerful piece of country balladry, backed with tasteful pedal steel and string arrangements. Meanwhile, Conor vocally is delivering this refreshing level of sharpness and bitterness that I don't think I've heard since Bright Eyes in the mid-2000s. Lyrically, loving the sentiment of the song too, as Conor is flying through all of this tragic imagery in the verses and then coming back around on the chorus saying that basically all he can do is dance and sing through it all. Now, this stunning moment in the track list for me gave me more hope for the rest of the album, but it doesn't take long for Conor Oberst and company to start diving back into the very tame and gutless alt-country instrumentation. Strip the vocals out of Just Once in the World and you basically have the soundtrack to, I don't know, a kind of rustic boomer dinner party. We also have One and Done, whose totally distracting and unnecessary vocal delays and string bits don't provide the depth they imply. Stairwell Song, which actually isn't that bad as a spotlit ballad, has all of these layers of thumping drums and harp and strings. It's pretty grand, reminding me of something off Lifted, but a lot less raw. On the back end of the record, Forced Convalescence also feels like something from Bright Eyes days of yore, but fed through the lens of some very restrained piano rock. It is fitting fitting, I suppose, that the lyrics see Connor addressing his new life, aging, and all of the growing pains that have come along with that. Sticking to the first leg of the record, it's not all safe. I think there are some experiments as well that don't go over quite that great. There is Mariana Trench, whose tune I actually like quite a bit. Some of the best lyrics show up on this track, and I love the airy synth chords too. But I'm confused by the drummer suddenly throwing in these skittering hi-hats that sound like, I don't know, popcorn going off in a pot. They do not fit the groove of the song at all, and they don't even last for that long, but it's just enough for it to ruin the vibe of the song entirely. Then there's Pan and Broom, whose relaxed and quaint organ chords and kind of chill drum machine beats make me feel like I'm hearing Connor sing over a Beach House demo. Thankfully, the second half of this thing is a bit more exciting. Persona non grata is a crushing ballad that sees Connor looking down at the offer of someone who in the past has been untrue to him. The vivid imagery of the encounter, along with the bitterness coming through in Connor's attitude, is just classic Bright Eyes through and through. The song Tilt-A-WHIRL might be a shorter cut in the track list, but still, it comes through with this boisterous folk rock instrumentation and shouty group vocals calling life a game of solitaire, amusement rides at county fairs, a tilt-a-whirl at our despair. Really one of Connor's most biting lines in a while. The droning To Death's Heart is one of the grander moments on the record instrumentally with its thick layers of synths. It even gets proggy at a few spots, I would say. Lyrically, Connor is going face to face once again with the point in life that he finds himself at currently, it seems, but it's separated out into a few parts. It's like he's kind of playing with these ideas once again, but he's getting a bit more existential about it. Hot Car in the Sun is so instrumentally emaciated I can barely recall anything about it, and Calais to Dover is one of the most compositionally typical tracks on the record too. I really fail to see what this song brings to the track list, considering we've heard Connor rock this chord progression or something similar to it so many times in the past. Thankfully, Comet Song is a very powerful finisher to the entire record. It's like this Lifted-esque spot on the album once again that is a huge ballroom ballad with grand instrumentation and painfully sharp lyrics, just heart-wrenching, heart-wrenching, heart-wrenching like a good Bright Eyes song should be. But that's the record. For me, it's really a mixed bag. Almost like a lack of direction in a sense. Because aesthetically, you get a mix of old and new on this LP, hit and miss. For sure, I enjoyed what went on here more than the People's Key, but I think I may leave it up to fans to decide whether or not this is better than Cassadaga, which, sure, that record is safer, but the songwriting and production had so much more of a focus and a methodical approach to it. Down in the Weeds, by comparison, is a bit more raw and all over the place, unpredictable in a way, but still lacking the bite of Bright Eyes' classic catalog. Feeling a light 6 on this one. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up, or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Bright Eyes forever.